My fiancée is pregnant with my stepbrother's baby, and my parents just emptied my college fund to support them. Aita for refusing to forgive. I never thought I'd be in this position, reaching out to strangers on the internet, but I'm at my breaking point and need some outside perspective. I'm typing this on my phone from a cheap motel room because I have nowhere else to go right now, so sorry for any formatting issues. 3 days ago, my entire life imploded. I, 23 male, was supposed to be getting married next month to Mia, 25 female, my girlfriend of 4 years. We met in college, fell in love, and I thought we had the perfect relationship. My parents adored her, she got along great with everyone in my family, especially my stepbrother Fred, 27 male. Too well, as it turns out. For some background, Fred is my stepbrother from when my mom remarried when I was 12. Fred and his dad moved in with us, and while we were never super close, we were cordial. Fred has always been the charming one but never really applied himself to anything. He dropped out of community college, bounces between minimum wage jobs, and has lived at home with my parents his entire adult life. My parents, especially my mom, always made excuses for him and bailed him out of every problem. I, on the other hand, worked hard in school, got scholarships, and was just 1 semester away from finishing my engineering degree. I've been working part-time throughout college to save for the wedding and our future. Mia and I had been living separately, her parents are religious, with plans to move in together after the wedding. Everything seemed fine until I came home early from a study session to surprise Mia. She'd been staying at my parents' house more often to help with wedding planning with my mom. When I arrived, the house seemed empty, but I heard noises from Fred's basement bedroom. I didn't think much of it at first, assuming he was watching TV or something. But as I got closer, I realized what those sounds were. I pushed open the door and found Mia and Fred in bed together. The look on their faces is burned into my memory, shock, then guilt, but not enough guilt in my opinion. I just stood there frozen for what felt like hours but was probably only seconds. Mia started crying and saying it wasn't what it looked like, which was ridiculous given the situation. Fred just sat there, not saying anything. I turned and walked out, got in my car, and drove aimlessly for hours. My phone blew up with calls and texts from Mia and later my parents, but I ignored them all. I finally went to my friend Jake's place and crashed on his couch, trying to process everything. The next morning, I decided I needed to face this head on. I went back to my parents' house where I knew everyone would be. My parents, Mia, and Fred were all sitting in the living room looking solemn. I expected apologies, begging for forgiveness, something. What I got was so much worse. My mom started by saying they needed to tell me something important. Mia was pregnant. With Fred's baby. Apparently, they'd been sleeping together behind my back for months. The pregnancy wasn't planned, but they had decided to keep it and raise the child together. I felt like I was having an out-of-body experience. I asked how long this had been going on, and Fred mumbled about 6 months, which meant it started right around the time I proposed to Mia. I looked at Mia, the woman I thought I'd spend my life with, and couldn't recognize her. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Then came the part that truly broke me. My stepdad cleared his throat and said that while this was unfortunate, they were choosing to support Fred and Mia in this new chapter of their lives. My mom then explained that since Fred wasn't financially stable and Mia would need to take time off work for the baby, they had made some arrangements to help. These arrangements included giving them the down payment money we had been saving for our first house, which was in a joint account that Mia had apparently emptied the day before, converting my old bedroom into a nursery. I'd been staying in the guest room while finishing school, and, this is the part that made me lose it, using my college fund to help with their baby expenses. The college fund was money my biological father had set up for me before he died when I was 8. My mom had been in charge of it, and I'd only been using part of it for tuition, saving the rest for possibly grad school. She had legal access, but I never thought she would touch it for something like this. When I started shouting about the unfairness of it all, how they were rewarding the 2 people who had betrayed me, my mother had the audacity to tell me that I needed to find forgiveness and that this was God's plan. She suggested that I should be the bigger person and consider helping raise the child, since Mia and I had been so close to marriage anyway. I told them they were all insane if they thought I would forgive this level of betrayal, let alone financially support them or help raise their affair baby. My stepdad then got angry and said if I couldn't accept their decision, I wasn't welcome in their home anymore. My mom didn't contradict him. She just sat there with tears in her eyes saying I needed to pray about it and accept God's will. I packed whatever I could fit in my car and left. I've been staying at this motel for the past 2 nights, trying to figure out what to do next. I had to withdraw from my classes because I can't afford the final semester without the money from my fund. My entire future has been derailed. The worst part is that some extended family members are telling me I should try to work things out with my parents. That blood is thicker than water, and family needs to stick together in difficult times. They're saying I'm being selfish for not trying to understand my mom's position, stuck between her son and stepson. But I don't see how I can ever forgive any of them. Mia betrayed me with my stepbrother. Fred betrayed me despite us growing up together. And my parents, they betrayed me worst of all by supporting them and giving away money that was meant for my future, money from my father. I feel completely alone right now. I've lost my fiancée, my family, my education plans, and my future home all in one blow. I'm trying to stay strong, but it's hard not to feel like the world is crashing down around me. So Reddit, am I the asshole for refusing to forgive them? Should I just accept this as God's plan and help raise my fiancée and stepbrother's baby while they live in my childhood home supported by my college fund? Because I honestly can't see myself ever being in the same room as any of them again without feeling sick. Update 1. It's been about 3 months since my original post, and a lot has changed. First, I want to thank everyone for their support and advice. Reading your comments helped me realize I wasn't crazy for feeling betrayed and that I had every right to cut toxic people out of my life, even if they're family. After my last post, I spent a week at the motel before my friend Jake convinced me to move into his spare room until I could figure things out. I'll forever be grateful for his support during the darkest time of my life. With a roof over my head, I was able to focus on picking up the pieces. The first thing I did was meet with my university's financial aid office. I explained my situation, leaving out some of the more personal details, and they helped me apply for emergency financial aid and additional loans. It wasn't ideal to take on more debt, but it allowed me to re-enroll and finish my degree. I also picked up a second job working nights at a warehouse to make ends meet. It was exhausting working 2 jobs while completing my final semester, but the busy schedule kept my mind off everything that happened. I barely had time to think about Mia, Fred, or my parents, which was probably for the best. I graduated last month with my engineering degree, and I already have a job lined up at a firm in a city about 3 hours from my hometown. As for my family situation, I've maintained my decision to cut contact. It hasn't been easy. My parents continued to call and text for weeks, alternating between guilt trips about abandoning family and lectures about the importance of forgiveness. I eventually blocked their numbers and created a new email address. Some flying monkeys from the extended family still try to reach out occasionally, but I've gotten better at shutting down those conversations quickly. I did have one unexpected encounter about a month ago. I was at the grocery store in my hometown. I'd gone back to pick up some paperwork from the university, when I ran into Mia. Her pregnancy was clearly showing by then. She tried to talk to me, started crying in the middle of the produce section, saying she made a terrible mistake and missed me. For a brief moment, I felt a twinge of the love I used to have for her, but it was quickly washed away by the memory of her betrayal. I simply told her that I wished her well but wanted nothing to do with her, Fred, or their baby. She mentioned that they were living with my parents now, that Fred was still struggling to hold down a job, and that things were complicated. I didn't ask for details and walked away. Later that same week, my mom somehow got through on a number I hadn't blocked. She called from a cousin's phone, and told me they were planning to have a small ceremony for Mia and Fred. She had the nerve to ask if I would consider attending to show support for the new family. I hung up without answering. The most difficult part in all of this has been dealing with the financial blow. My parents emptied nearly $30,000 from my college fund, money that was specifically left to me by my biological father. I consulted with a lawyer about possibly recovering it, but since my mother was the custodian of the account with legal access, there wasn't much I could do without a lengthy and expensive legal battle that I couldn't afford. The lawyer did help me ensure that my parents couldn't access any of my current accounts or take out loans in my name. She also helped me draft a formal cease and desist letter when the contact from my parents became too much. It wasn't legally binding, but it did seem to get the message across that I was serious about the no contact boundary. Through all of this, I've learned who my true friends are. Jake and a couple of other friends have been incredibly supportive, and I've actually grown closer to my biological father's sister, my Aunt Lisa, who was furious when she found out what happened to the money her brother had set aside for me. She's been checking in regularly and even helped me with the security deposit for my new apartment in the city where I'll be starting work. As I prepare to move and start my new job, I'm feeling cautiously optimistic about the future. The betrayal still hurts, and I still have moments of intense anger when I think about everything that was taken from me. But I'm determined not to let what they did define the rest of my life. I recently heard through the grapevine that Mia and Fred's relationship is already on rocky ground, with frequent fights about money and Fred's lack of responsibility. My parents are apparently supporting them entirely now, which is causing financial strain. Part of me feels a grim satisfaction in that, though I know it's not particularly noble. For now, I'm focused on building my own life and healing. I'm still not interested in dating again. The trust issues from this betrayal run deep, but I'm working on myself and trying to move forward one day at a time. I don't know if I'll ever truly be able to forgive what they did, but I'm learning that I don't have to forgive to move on with my life. Update 2. It's been just over 4 years since my original post, and I thought I'd share another update since circumstances have changed significantly. After my last update, I moved to the new city and threw myself into my career. The engineering firm I joined was growing rapidly, and I took advantage of every opportunity to learn and advance. I put in long hours and took on challenging projects that others avoided. The work became my therapy in a way, giving me purpose and direction when everything else in my life had fallen apart. My hard work paid off. 2 years ago, I was promoted to project manager, and last year I became one of the youngest department heads in the company's history. The financial stability I've achieved has been healing in its own way. I bought my own condo last year, have a healthy retirement account started, and have even managed to pay off all my student loans early. I've also slowly rebuilt my personal life. I started dating again about 2 years ago, though cautiously. I've been seeing someone named Claire for about a year now. She knows my full history and has been patient with my trust issues. We're talking about moving in together soon, which is a big step for me. As for my family situation, I've maintained my no contact boundary with my parents, Mia, and Fred. It hasn't always been easy, especially during holidays, but it's been necessary for my mental health. I've built what I call my family of choice with close friends and my Aunt Lisa, who has become like a mother figure to me. I thought I had successfully put that chapter of my life behind me until last week, when I received a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered it. It was my mother, sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. Once she calmed down enough to speak clearly, she told me they were about to lose the house to foreclosure and needed my help. Apparently, the financial strain of supporting Fred, Mia, and their child, a girl who would be about 3 now, for the past 4 years had completely drained their savings and retirement accounts. My stepdad had health issues last year that resulted in significant medical bills, and they'd fallen behind on their mortgage payments. The bank was foreclosing, and they had nowhere to go. My mother begged me to help them, saying that despite everything, we were still family and family had to take care of each other. She mentioned how successful I'd become, she'd been keeping tabs on me through social media and mutual acquaintances, and said I had a family obligation to help them in their time of need. I asked about Fred and learned he was still living with them, still unemployed except for occasional gig work. Mia was working part-time at a local store but not making enough to support herself and the child independently. My parents had been their safety net all this time, and now that net was completely worn through. For a moment, I felt a twinge of guilt and considered helping. Then I remembered my mother's words from 4 years ago about accepting God's plan and being the bigger person. I reminded her of how they had taken my college fund and given it to the very people who betrayed me, how they had chosen Fred over me when I needed them most. I told her that perhaps this was God's plan now, that they were facing the consequences of their choices and should accept it with the same grace they had expected from me. Then I hung up and blocked the number. The call shook me more than I expected. Later that evening, I called Aunt Lisa to tell her what happened. She wasn't surprised. She'd heard through family connections that my parents were in financial trouble and had been wondering if they would reach out to me. She reassured me that I had made the right decision and reminded me that I didn't owe them anything after the way they had treated me. Still, it's been a difficult week. Part of me feels guilty for not helping, even though I know they don't deserve it. Another part feels vindicated that their decision to enable Fred and Mia has led to this outcome. Mostly, I'm just sad that it had to be this way. Despite everything, they're still the people who raised me, and there was a time when I loved them deeply. Claire has been my rock through this, reminding me that it's normal to have complicated feelings about family, even when they've hurt you badly. She also pointed out that helping them financially now would likely just be throwing good money after bad, as the underlying problems, Fred's unwillingness to support his family and my parents' enabling behavior, haven't changed. For now, I'm standing firm in my decision not to get involved. I've worked too hard to rebuild my life to risk getting pulled back into their drama. I don't wish them ill, but I can't be their safety net after they pulled mine out from under me when I needed it most. Update 3. It's been about 2 months since my last update, and I felt I should share the latest developments as this chapter of my life seems to be finally closing. After I refused to help my parents with their financial crisis, they apparently became desperate. Within a week of my refusal, I started receiving messages from extended family members and even old friends from my hometown. At first, it was just casual checking in messages, but they quickly turned into appeals for me to reconsider helping my parents. The story they were telling everyone was heavily edited. According to them, they were facing homelessness because they had sacrificed everything to help Fred's family, and now their ungrateful son who had made it big was refusing to help them in their time of need. They conveniently left out the part about my ex-fiancée, the betrayal, and how they had taken my college fund to support the affair. It reached a breaking point when my cousin Ryan, who I had been close with growing up, called me and started berating me for abandoning my family. He said I should be ashamed of myself for living comfortably while my parents were packing up their house and had nowhere to go. That was when I decided I had enough of the manipulation and lies. I wrote out a detailed account of everything that had happened 4 years ago, how Mia had cheated with Fred, how they had announced her pregnancy, how my parents had emptied my college fund to support them, and how they had kicked me out when I wouldn't forgive and help raise their child. I included screenshots of some of the messages my parents had sent me back then, and even a copy of the bank statement showing the withdrawal from my college fund. I sent this information to Ryan and told him he could share it with anyone who contacted me about helping my parents. I wasn't going to hide their behavior anymore or protect their reputation. The response was immediate and surprising. Many family members who had been pressuring me suddenly went silent. Others reached out to apologize, saying they had no idea what had really happened. A few even expressed outrage at my parents for lying to them and manipulating the situation. My Aunt Carol, my mother's sister, called me in tears. She had been one of the people trying to convince me to help, but after learning the truth, she was horrified. She told me that my parents, Fred, Mia, and the child had moved in with her temporarily after losing the house. She had agreed because she thought they were victims of circumstance, not realizing the full story. She said living with them had been eye-opening. Fred still refused to look for steady work, claiming various reasons why jobs weren't right for him. Mia seemed depressed and withdrawn. My parents were constantly fighting with each other about money. The only innocent party was the little girl, who seemed confused and unsettled by all the tension and frequent moves. Aunt Carol said she now understood my position completely and wouldn't push me to reconcile or provide financial support. She also mentioned that she was setting firm boundaries with them about how long they could stay and expectations while they were under her roof. Last week, I received an email from my mother. It was surprisingly reflective, acknowledging for the first time that they had made terrible mistakes in how they handled the situation 4 years ago. She didn't explicitly apologize, but she did say she understood why I had cut contact and that she regretted many of her choices. She mentioned that they were looking into senior living options that they could afford with their Social Security, and that Fred and Mia were planning to move to another state where Mia's distant relatives might be able to help them get established. She didn't ask for money or forgiveness this time, just said she hoped that someday we might be able to have some form of relationship again. I haven't responded, and I'm not sure if I will. While a small part of me appreciates the more humble tone, it's hard to forget the years of manipulation and the recent attempt to turn family against me. Trust, once broken at that level, is nearly impossible to rebuild. For now, I'm continuing to focus on my own life. Claire and I did move in together last month, and it's been going well. My career continues to advance, and I'm considering starting my own engineering consultancy in the next few years. I've found peace in the family I've chosen, friends who respect my boundaries and care about my well-being. I don't know if I'll ever have contact with my parents or Fred and Mia again. I don't actively wish them harm, but I also don't feel responsible for rescuing them from the consequences of their choices. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is recognize when a relationship is too damaged to repair and walk away with whatever lessons you've learned. If there's anything positive that came from this painful experience, it's that I've learned how strong I really am. I rebuilt my life from scratch when everything was taken from me, and that knowledge gives me confidence to face whatever challenges come next.